भूलिया रोहिला तुम्हें अविद्यारा परे हे तोमर लैते हामी होइन अवतारा तुमर लैते हामी होइन अवतारा हामी बिना बन्धु आरा के अच्छा तुम्हारा हामी बिना बन्धु आरा के अच्छे तुम्हारा हेचे औषध माया नसीबरो लागि हेनेचे औषध माया नसीबरो लागि हरिनाम महामंत्र लाव तुम्ही मागी हरिनाम महामंत्र लाव तुम्ही मागी भक्ति विनोद प्रभु चरणे पड़िया भक्ति विनोद प्रभु चरणे पड़िया से हरि नाम मंत्रालय लो मागिया से हरि नाम मंत्रालय लो मागिया जीव जागो गौरा चंद्र बोले कताई निद्रा जाओ माया पिशाची रात खोले जीव जागो गौरा चंदा बोले जीव जागो गौरा चंदा बोले Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
I don't know how I sang, but I did.
I feel like we were in the spiritual world. Okay. Associating with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. Let us read the translation. Thank you. Lord Gauranga is calling. Wake up, sleeping souls. Wake up, sleeping souls. How long will you sleep on the lap of the witch called Maya? Number 2, please. Somebody, please.
You have forgotten the way of devotional service and are lost in the world of birth and death.
Number 3.
Hare Krishna, I have descended just to save you. Other than myself, you have no friend in this world.
Number 4.
I have brought the medicine that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you are suffering. Take this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
And number 5. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I fall at the Lord's feet, having taken this Maha Mantra. Okay. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Morning, devotees. We are continuing our study today of the Sri Caitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 8, entitled the Conversations between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy. Before we begin, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who has brought this mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the West to deliver the fallen souls. He has translated this Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita from the Bengali into English and has given us the Bhaktivedanta purport so we can understand the inner meaning of the Lord's message. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Where we have left off, Lord Chaitanya is traveling through South India, and during his travel he's meeting a number of different devotees, one of which is Ramananda Roy. He has a position in the government. Right away they began to hit it off, even though by caste he is not a Brahmana. He's considered to be a Sudra. But when one transcends the platform of the modes of material nature, these considerations are no longer very important when one becomes a Vaishnava. They began speaking. Ramananda Roy wanted to hear about the glories of the Lord from Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya had actually asked Ramananda Roy, "Please tell me something about the ultimate goal of life." And we're currently in that conversation, and what we've heard up to this point is that Ramananda Roy, he started off by saying that when asked, tell me something about the ultimate goal of life from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said that by following one's prescribed duties according to one's varna and ashram, the Supreme Lord is very pleased. And Lord Chaitanya said, "Okay, but can you explain a little bit more? Can you go further?" And he says, "Well, if one dedicates specifically the activities of one's dharma, of one's prescribed duty, and gives the fruits to the Lord, that is even higher." And Lord Chaitanya said, "Yes, but that's still kind of on the material plane." Right away we understand that Lord Chaitanya was trying to take us much deeper than just simply the varnashram system. And he says, well, what if one gets to the point where one can become detached from one's prescribed duties? That's even higher. And then lastly, last week, Lord Chaitanya, he replied, he said, this is where we ended last week, when Ramananda Roy stated, to give up one's occupational duties in the Varnashram system is the essence of perfection. So it spoke about renunciation. And he gives a reference to this, and this is where we pick up on text number 62. We'll hear, this is a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11.11.32. So we'll hear some verses from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam as Ramananda Roy is giving reference to his statements. So, Nrsimha Prabhu, would you like to read? This is a verse from Bhagavatam.
This is English from
Aggavaivam gunandosam mayadishtam apishakanam dharman santajaya ya sarvan mam bhajate sacha sattamaha.
Ramananda Roy continued, occupational duties are described in the religious scriptures. If one analyzes them, he can fully understand their qualities and faults, and then give them up completely to render service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a person is considered a first-class man. Text number 63.
Dharman parittajya mamekam saranam ja aham tam sarvo papebho moksha ma sucha.
Translation. As stated in the scripture Bhagavad Gita 1866, after giving up all kinds of religious and occupational duties, if you come to me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and take shelter, I will give you protection from all of life's sinful reactions. Do not worry. Purport. In this connection, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami instructs in his book, the Manashiksha, Na dharmam na dhanam shrutigana nirukutam kila kuru Vrajay Radha Krishna Prachura Paricharayam Iha Tanu. He has thus enjoined that we should not perform religious or irreligious activities as prescribed in the Vedas. The best course is to engage always in the service of Lord Krishna and Radharani. That is the perfection of everything in this life. Similarly, in Srimad Bhagavatam 4:29-46, it is stated by Narada Muni, Yada yasyan ugrananti bhagavan atma bhavita Sajahati matim loke videcha pari nishtitam. When one actually takes to the loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he gives up all duties in the material world, as well as the duties prescribed in the Vedic literatures. In this way, one is fixed in the service of the Lord. Om Agyanatimbadandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So what we have here is an interesting statement by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami in his book of Manashiksha that Srila Prabhupada has pointed out. He says here that he is thus enjoined that we should not perform religious or irreligious activities as prescribed in the Vedas. That the goal of the Vedas, the goal of life, is the best course is to engage always in the service of Lord Krishna and Radharani. So I found this to be interesting because we hear that basically the Vedas are the text which are to lead us to self-realization. They are none different than Krishna himself. They are the words of Lord Krishna, coming in various ways. But we also know that the Vedas are broken up into, there's a Karma Kanda section, a Jnana Kanda section, There's the Dharma Shastras, and there's ultimately the Bhakti Shastras. And the Bhakti Shastras are the ones, if to cultivate loving, or to reestablish our lost relationship with the Supreme Lord, that is what we are to follow. And like following any type of prescription, if we get lost in many of the details, we may miss the goal. At the same time, there's a statement by Srila Rupa Goswami that if we perform devotional activities, but it's not in line with the scriptures, this can also become a disturbance to society. In other words, we can't just say, okay, I'm going to make up my own devotional religion and just dedicate myself to Krishna and have it not in any connection with the words of the scriptures. So it can become quite complicated. Yes, there are many scriptures. Sometimes the scriptures are giving us, well, from our limited understanding, maybe sometimes different advice. Bhagavad Gita is one of them. Krishna is talking about doing one's duty, performing one's prescribed duties. One can please Krishna by performing one's prescribed duties. And then at the very end, we get the verse, Sarva dharmam pratyaja, mamekam sharanam vraja, aham tvam sarva papevyo, mokshaya shami masuchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion, all your dharmas, and just surrender unto me. So this is why it's so important to have a spiritual master. To avoid this confusion, a person who has realized and is in the chain of disciplic succession, to understand the actual import and purport of Krishna's message, to clear up any confusion which lies in understanding sometimes what appears to be different instructions, to keep us focused always on the goal and not get lost on the journey. Anybody have any comments to add to this before we continue? Okay, let us continue. Text number 64.
প্রভু কহে এহ বাহ্য আগে কহ আর রায় কহে জ্ঞানমৃষা ভক্তি সাধ্য সার.
After hearing Ramananda Roy speak in this way, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu again rejected his statement and said, "Go ahead and say something more." Purport. Ramananda Roy then replied, "Devotional service mixed with empiric knowledge is the essence of perfection. Devotional service mixed with non-Vedic speculative knowledge is certainly not pure devotional service. Therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, in his Anubhashya, preaches that self-realization following the execution of ritualistic ceremonies is in the neutral stage between liberation and conditioned life. It is a place beyond this material world, in the river Viraja, where the three modes of material nature are subdued or neutralized in the unmanifest stage. However, the spiritual world is a manifestation of spiritual energy and is known as Vaikuntha Loka, the place where there is no anxiety. The material world, known as Brahmananda, is the creation of the external energy. Between the two creations, the material creation and the spiritual creation, is a river known as Viraja. as well as a place known as Brahmaloka. Viraja Nadi and Brahmaloka are shelters for living entities disgusted with material life and inclined to impersonal existence, by way of denying material variegatedness. Since these places are not situated in the Vaikuntha Lokas, or the spiritual world, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu proclaims them to be external. In the Brahmaloka and Viraj Nadi, one cannot conceive of the Vaikuntha Lokas. Brahmaloka and Viraj Nadi are also attained after difficult austerities. But in these realms, there is no understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His transcendental loving service. Without such spiritual knowledge, simple detachment from material conditions is but another side of material existence. From the spiritual point of view, it is all external. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected this proposal, Ramananda Roy suggested that devotional service based on philosophy and logic is a more advanced position. He therefore quoted the following verse from the Bhagavad Gita 18:54. So Srila Prabhupada brings up here a couple important points, specifically with regards to impersonal realization and the destination of those that are Brahmavadis or Mayavadis. They're trying to escape this material world, being frustrated by the qualities of this material world. And they enter into a place, and they achieve this by performing great austerities, sometimes studying the scriptures, trying to detach themselves from material life. But they don't attach themselves to the spiritual energy. They don't inquire about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, nor are they trying to achieve service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They deny all variegatedness, considering it to be material. So they're placed in this this location called the Brahmaloka, or at the Viraja River, and this is a place that's described where the three modes of material nature are subdued or neutralized, and they're in unmanifested stage. We should not consider this to be the spiritual world, as stated here by Srila Prabhupada, because it is devoid of understanding about Krishna and His transcendental loving service. And without such spiritual knowledge, just by detachment from material conditions, is not sufficient enough to enter into the spiritual world. He even says this is simply just another side of material existence. You've put material existence basically on hold by trying to escape it, but not necessarily attaching oneself or entering into a relationship with Krishna. You're trying to end material existence. Any questions or comments before we move on? Okay, let's continue. Text number 65 from the Bhagavad Gita.
ब्रह्मभूते प्रसन्नात्मा ना सोचित ना कंक्षाति Samo sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param.
Translation. Ramananda Roy continued, according to the Bhagavad Gita, one who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Purport. In this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that a person who accepts the theory of monism, being always engaged in empiric philosophical discussions about spiritual life, becomes joyful and is relieved from all material lamentation and hankering. At that stage, one is equipoised. He sees all living entities as spiritual beings. After attaining this elevated stage, one can attain pure devotional service. The conclusion is that devotional service mixed with ritualistic fruitive activity is inferior to spiritual service based on empiric philosophic discussions. So here we see Lord Caitanya quoting this famous verse from the Bhagavad Gita, in which one who achieves Brahman realization can become fully joyful, Ananda. This Ananda really can only, and the qualities of such, he never laments nor desires, na sochati, na kanchati. And that he is equally disposed toward every living entity. If one achieves this stage, one is fit to perform pure devotional service unto Krishna. Now the question may arise then, is this the same Brahmananda that was described in the previous verse, in which it's being considered to be material, because it's bereft of one's service to the Supreme Lord, and that there is no understanding of a connection with Krishna. So the qualities, it's all ultimately Krishna's energy, and the qualities of such a person who's trying to escape this material world, when they come to the point of Brahman realization, there is a relief. Srila Prabhupada also says that at this location of Brahman realization, this Ananda can't fully be experienced. It's only a joy or an experience of feeling relief, but not actual Ananda of spiritual association with Krishna. And oftentimes they need to leave the Brahmajyoti in order to re-enter the material world and pick up and restart their realization from there. And then, as we know, that the soul never dies, so it continues on its spiritual path. It's also stated that the soul comes down due to lack of relationship, due to lack of a sense of trying to enjoy that can't be experienced in the Brahmajyoti. They take on various types of activities in this material world to try to find joy. Oftentimes Srila Prabhupada would refer to, they engage in some type of service of starting hospitals, humanitarian work, altruistic work, to try to help people, thinking that they're going to find joy there. But if one has a spiritual connection to a devotee, a bhakta, then one is primed because they're already detached from this material world to connect themselves back with Krishna. And that is the importance of spreading the Krishna consciousness movement, is that we can find souls that are ripe, they're ready. They've had enough of this material world. And Lord Caitanya is traveling around with the Gaura Bhakta Vrindas, trying to find people, saying, Jeev Jago, wake up, sleeping souls, wake up. Trying to give this Maha Mantra and knowledge about Krishna. So the purport ends with this idea that the conclusion is that devotional service mixed with ritualistic fruitive activity. So this is Karma Mishra Bhakti, where one performs devotional service and they may be attached to the various rituals that come with it, as well as some of the fruits that come with performing those rituals. But they mix it with their devotional service, and it kind of becomes one. And it's not pure, because that's inferior to spiritual service based on philosophical discussions, empiric philosophical discussions. When one comes to the point of empiric philosophical discussions, rising above ritualistic fruitive activity, it is understood that they've basically come to the point of detachment from this material world, whereas a person who's still attached to fruitive activities still has some desire to enjoy this material world. Any questions or comments before moving on? If so, please speak or ask. Okay, text number 66.
प्रभु कहे एहो बाज्य आगे कहो आर राय कहे ज्ञान शून्य भक्ति साध्य सार.
Translation. After hearing this, the Lord, as usual, rejected it, considering it to be external devotional service. He again asked Ramananda Roy to speak further, and Ramananda Roy replied, pure devotional service without any touch of speculative knowledge is the essence of perfection. Purport. In his Anubhashya commentary, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that this stage, devotional service, mixed with speculative knowledge, is also external and not within the jurisdiction of pure devotional service, as practiced in Vaikuntha Loka. As soon as there is some conception of materialistic thought, be it positive or negative, the service is not spiritual. It may be free from material contamination, but because there is mental speculation, the devotional service is not pure and freed from the contamination of material life. A living entity who wants to be completely pure must be above this material conception. The negation of material existence does not necessarily mean spiritual existence. After material existence is negated, spiritual existence, namely Sach, Chit, and Ananda, still may not be manifested. Until one comes to the stage of actually understanding one's eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, he cannot enter into spiritual life. Spiritual life means becoming detached from material life and engaging in loving service of the Lord. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu therefore asked Ramananda Roy to explain something transcendental to devotional service, mixed with speculative knowledge. A pure devotee is completely surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord, and only by his love does he conquer Krishna, who cannot be conquered by anyone. Krishna always stands victorious over everything. No one can conquer him. One can attain the stage of pure devotional service by simply surrendering. This is next corroborated by Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-3, wherein Lord Brahma, defeated by the potency of Sri Krishna, fully surrendered unto the Lord. So again, a very wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada. Does anybody have any points from what we just read that they would like to share or speak about? Again, the point is being made that negation of material existence is not spiritual. Only when one comes into a spiritual relationship with the Supreme Lord does that activity become spiritual. And he makes an important point, Srila Prabhupada. He's quoting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, saying that as soon as there is some conception of materialistic thought, be it positive or negative, the service is not spiritual. It may be free from material contamination, meaning from fruitive desire. I'm not trying to achieve any type of wealth, recognition, advancement in material status. He says, but because there may be mental speculation, the devotional service is not pure. So even this idea of the mental speculation is an impurity that will prevent us from performing devotional service. So, in what ways do we speculate mentally that could be obstructions in our devotional service? Does anybody have any ideas of ways in which we speculate, or we may be prone to speculate mentally? Any thoughts?
He says we have to leave our what do you call positive and negative. The service is actually not spiritual, he says, and it may be free from material contamination, but because of mental speculation, he says, devotional service is not pure.
Right.
And it is free from contamination of material living. So
Yeah.
actually,
So what are some of those mental speculations? Because it's a very subtle thing. We can see from here that yes, the person is kind of freed from material desire, gross material desire. But what are some of the mental speculations that we encounter?
He says a living entity, he has to be completely pure and do the above material conception. He has to be completely pure. And the material existence does not necessarily mean spiritual existence. So here he says, after material existence, you have to be negative spiritual existence.
Right.
Sachidananda.
Right.
Hare Krishna. What
Hare
I'm
Krishna,
thinking,
Mother
what
Sima.
I'm thinking is that sometimes when we do the work, we want to be recognized. So I feel that this is the contamination and this might obstruct in the bhakti.
Yes,
The bhakti.
wanting to be recognized for
Yeah.
our service. Um, it's a very important um, impurity that comes about.
Always we need that, praising and whatever we do, somebody has to recognize and let us praise. That is what the thing, I think.
Yes, yes, that is true, and that is certainly something that would prevent us from performing pure devotional service. Um, our mental speculations often come in the realm of not understanding or fully believing in the words of Krishna and the spiritual master. Um, Krishna must mean this, spiritual master must mean that, in ways in which we create our own conclusions and our own scenarios. We're not satisfied and our faith is not strong, but we have faith in our own minds to come up with a conclusion. One of the hardest things to accept, for the false ego to accept, is that Krishna is inconceivable and that Krishna is fully independent and can do whatever he wants any way he wants it. And it's going to be beyond our understanding. We won't be able to understand it. We'll only be able to understand the principle that we can't understand it and Krishna is completely free. And that drives the false ego nuts, because we still want to be able to have mental control and understanding over the unlimited. And that's something that we can't have. And that's something that's very hard to give up, sacrificing one's mind. So that was something that I had have understood about this idea of mental speculation and why it becomes so difficult. And unless one actually has a relationship with Krishna, you can imagine if one doesn't have a relationship with Krishna, all you have is your mind. If you don't have faith in the teachings of the spiritual master who is teaching you about what Krishna is saying, and the bona fide spiritual master, then we're only left up to our minds. Which gets us to the end of this purport, which begins to talk about the process of surrender. That one can attain the stage of pure devotional service, of pure devotion, simply by fully surrendering. And we'll hear about a verse from Lord Brahma. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he talks about the 6 stages of surrender. Some of these may seem familiar to you, maybe all of them. Accepting the favorable, rejecting unfavorable, having faith in the protection that Krishna is going to look after me, accepting guardianship of Krishna, Voluntarily saying, so one is basically, I know Krishna is there to protect me. The other is voluntarily accepting, I want no other shelter, no other guardian except Krishna. Self-submission. And lastly, humility, acknowledging one's own limitations and understanding that Krishna is unlimited. The reason I bring these up is that you may be familiar with this terminology, slippage. Slippage means that you get to your destination going downwards, not simply by one action. It's a series of actions that basically spiral out of control. No one can't put on their pants anymore because they ate a slice of cake. No, it's a series of choices. Starts with a slice of cake, and then goes to uncontrollable habits, and then you get to the point where you can no longer fit into your pants. So in spiritual life, there's also the opposite, which is called adage, instead of slippage, because we could slip also in spiritual life. A series of actions in which we reject the mercy of the Lord. But the adage is we take steps of surrender. And a lot of times this becoming surrendered takes place in multiple steps, actually very incremental steps that occur every day and choices that we make all day long. Accepting things that are favorable, rejecting unfavorable activities to our devotional life. They come in the form of conversations, forms of opportunities to spend our time, rejecting and accepting unfavorable. We have a choice of surrender basically almost at every moment of the day. It's very rarely do you see a person, they go on a yatra, they come back, and they're just fully surrendered. And if it does, it may only last for a very short period of time. They may get some utsaha, some enthusiasm. But surrender is a process, and it's incremental steps in which we get a chance to choose in our lives every single day, every moment of the day. Where do we place our faith in difficult times? Do we first turn to Krishna? Or are we first trying to figure it out ourselves? Krishna, really, you don't exist in this situation. Or yes, Krishna, everything relies on you. You're the supreme controller. Yes, I may still have to do something, but I'm placing my faith in you, that whatever outcome happens. We're faced with these situations on a regular basis. So getting to this point of pure devotion requires fully surrendering. But don't expect this full surrender to happen in a snap. It's a series of choices that we have, and we'll gradually start to recognize, as we start making the correct choices, a change in our life and a dependency on the Supreme Lord. Let's move. We're going to hear from a statement by Lord Brahma, Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.3, text number 67. This is the Brahma Samhita meter, Nrsimha Prabhu.
ज्ञाने प्रशाम् उदपश्यनमन्तर जीवन्ति सन्मुखरितं भवभादिया भर्तं स्थाने स्थिता श्रुतिगतं तनुभन्नोभिः ये प्रायासो जिताजितो अपि अशीतै त्रिलोकम्.
Translation. Ramananda Roy continued, Lord Brahma said, My dear Lord, those devotees who have thrown away the impersonal conception of the absolute truth and have therefore abandoned discussing empiric philosophic truths should hear from self-realized devotees about your holy name, form, pastimes, and qualities. They should completely follow the principles of devotional service and remain free from illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, and animal slaughter. Surrendering themselves fully with body, words, and mind, they can live in any ashram or social status. Indeed, you are conquered by such persons, although you are always unconquerable. It's a beautiful praise of the Lord by Lord Brahma. It goes along with the topic of surrender, which Srila Prabhupada and we spoke about in the previous verse. Let's do number 68. We'll do a few more, and then we'll end for the day.
প্রভু কহে এহ হয় আগে কহ আর রায় কহে প্রেম ভক্তি সর্বসাধ্য সার
Translation. At this point, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu replied, This is all right, but still you can speak more on the subject. Purport. Ramananda Roy then replied, Ecstatic love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the essence of all perfection. In his Amrita Pravaha Bhasya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur summarizes the conversation up to this point, where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says to Ramananda Roy, Eho haya agi kaha ara. This is the process accepted in devotional service. But there is something more than this. Therefore, please explain what is beyond. Simply executing the duties of all varnas and ashrams is not as good as offering all the results of one's activities to the Lord. When one gives up all fruit of activity and fully surrenders to the Lord, he attains swadharma tyaga. Within he abandons the social order and takes to the renounced order. That is certainly better. However, better than the renounced order is cultivation of knowledge mixed with devotional service. Yet, all these activities are external to the activities of the spiritual world. There is no touch of pure devotional service in them. Pure devotional service cannot be attained by empiric philosophy, nor can perfection be attained simply by good association. Devotional service by self-realization is a different subject matter. It is untouched by fruit of activity, for one surrenders the results of the activities to the Lord, abandons prescribed duties, and accepts the renounced order of life. Such devotional service is situated on the higher platform than that of empiric philosophical speculation with a mixture of bhakti. This is verified by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11. Famous verse. Anabhilashashita shunyam jnana karmadya anavritam anukuliyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord, Krishna, favorably, without desire for material profit or gain, through fruit of activities or philosophical speculation. This is called pure devotional service. Devotional activities, however, sometimes appear to be impure in the neophyte stage, but in the mature stage, they are completely pure, or free from material activity. Therefore, Ramananda Roy replied after hearing the last statement of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Prema Bhakti, Sarva Sadyasara. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually accepted this verse, Jane Prayasam, as the basic principle of perfection. One has to practice this principle in order to make further progress. When further progress is actually made, it comes to the platform of ecstatic, loving service to the Lord. The first stage is technically called sadhana bhakti, or devotional service in practice. The result of sadhana bhakti must be ecstatic love, attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is also called prema bhakti. In the neophyte stage, sadhana bhakti includes faith, association with devotees, and practicing devotional service. Thus, one is freed from all unwanted things. One then becomes fixed in devotional service and increases his desire to act in devotional service. Thus, one becomes attached to the Lord and his devotional service. Hare Krishna. I'll pause here and see if there are any questions that anybody has from this purport. Another fantastic purport by Srila Prabhupada, and a summary of where we are up to now in the conversation between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy. Anybody have any questions? Any comments? Realizations?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Go
Yeah,
ahead. Madhya Priya.
and just previous you were talking about speculation. One is saying is that like people who read all kind of books, they don't accept, they read Bhagavad Gita, like Prabhupada said, but they don't accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They say just Krishna is just mythological, and generally people think like that. A lot of people, especially the Mayavadi. So I'm just thinking, even so many devotees, that we read so many things, but it is very difficult for us just to put in practice, And we think, and I know even many senior devotees, if they're having, they've been reading that we have to fully surrender into Krishna, that they choose so many other material way, just, for their material problem, Some will go to astrologer and they will go to that healer. So I'm just thinking, just to develop firm conviction, faith in Krishna is not an easy thing to do. Why so many devotees, I know so many senior devotees, even if they being, they accepted Krishna, if you fully surrender Krishna, all your problem will be solved. But they still look for, other ways to solve the problem. What do you think about it?
Interesting question. So, with regards to healing, if a person's sick, going to a doctor, we can also see that is also the manifestation of Krishna. So one can just say, I'm going to just let Krishna heal me. I'm going to let Krishna protect me. I won't take any medicine, and I will, just let Krishna heal me from within. There's a story in this connection, well-known story, about the person who is in a boat, and the boat's stuck in the middle of the ocean, and they're waiting. The guy's praying, God, please come and save me. And the boat's sinking. God, please come and save me. And he's praying like this, God, please save me. And a helicopter comes, and he drops a rope down for the guy to climb on and take him away. And he says, no, I can't accept it, because I'm praying, God's going to come and save me. And another boat comes with a raft, jump on the raft. He says, no, what do I need a raft for? I trust in God. God will come and save me. So finally he winds up drowning with the boat that's sinking. And then, after death, he gets the darshan of God, and he says, I prayed to you that you to save me, and I trusted in you to save me, but yet I still died. And God said, you idiot, you prayed to me, I sent you a helicopter, I sent you another raft, I sent you so many things, but you rejected them all. So the trouble comes when we see these things disconnected from Krishna. And then at the very end, accepting ultimately, despite receiving such treatments, that ultimately we have to surrender to Krishna's will. But by being able to see these things in terms that they're not separate from Krishna, one can receive them in the proper spirit. To think that this is outside of Krishna's paradigm or outside of Krishna's control would be an error for a devotee. So if a person says, okay, I'm sick, I have to put my Krishna consciousness aside, and I just have to take care of myself, and you forget about Krishna, that would be a mistake. That would be a mental speculation. Also, if we think that Krishna can't appear in the form of medicine, healing, etc., that would also be a mistake. The key principle is to understand that Krishna is available for help, and I don't abandon my relationship with Krishna at any time, whether the outcome is good or bad. What I have seen from devotees is sometimes they trust more in alternative or new inventions more than Krishna, as if this is actually going to solve our problems. Or they may come to some type of, when especially if it comes to like astrology. We had this situation a couple of years ago. There was a big eclipse that came, and everybody's saying, oh, it's so inauspicious, the very inauspicious eclipse, we have to hide inside. And but for devotees, we rely on the holy name. What is auspicious and inauspicious? Inauspicious means when Krishna is not present. Auspicious means when Krishna is present. So there was a conversation in many of the temples, including our temple. During that time, can we even wake the deities? Because the deities were sleeping in the daytime, and then they were supposed to be woken, but it was being woken at a time when this eclipse was going on. And somebody said, according to Shastra, everybody says according to Shastra, right? Which Shastra? Are these Shastras that we follow? According to Shastra, I don't think we should open up the deities. So this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not contaminated by some inauspicious time in the material world. He's completely pure at all times. How can you put material conditions on the Supreme Lord? So these are the mental speculations that we kind of go through, and sometimes we get attached, to, sometimes overly. I'll put it this way: overly attached. We don't use it as a tool for our service to the Lord, or something that we can use in the service, but it actually becomes a substitute for our devotional service, and that's where we have to really be careful. Just like we mentioned before, we may get confused by different scriptural directions. Perform your prescribed duties, abandon your prescribed duties. This is why we need a spiritual master active in our life. When we read the words of Srila Prabhupada, and we study his books, we'll see that Srila Prabhupada is alive and is speaking to us. And so many of his disciples who have, followed his footsteps so perfectly, asking them for direction and how to properly understand to avoid any type of confusion, to avoid our own mental speculations, is recommended. Do you have anything to add to that, Mother Golokananda Priya?
You really nicely explain, when we should put our faith in other option other than Krishna. Gave the nice example, but Krishna is sending everything and we're not using it. And also he said, sometimes we don't trust, the example you give it now, like when there's solar eclipse or something, and we believe in that more than we believe that Krishna is behind everything. And we are scared of this stuff that is not recommended by our spiritual master, like Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada sometimes said, like sometimes there's a war, what we should do, Prabhupada just chant Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
And Prabhupada himself was involved in a war, with the Gandhian and the Muslim riot. And at this difficult time, we just have to take shelter of Krishna, and we have to learn, in our day-to-day life, how to take shelter of Krishna in any situation. But what one realization I have. And we have to know that Krishna is everything. And Krishna promised it, and if Krishna promised it, if we have faith in Krishna, we have to, accept his promise. And it takes time, and then also, our heart has to be purified, and we have to understand who really Krishna is, really Krishna everything for us. And we've been taught again and again, all these charyas have been telling, you're everything for me. You're my mother, father, son, lover, husband, wife, everything. Krishna is everything. So if we come to that realization, that means we're understanding what Srila Prabhupada said, to fully surrender to Krishna, accept Krishna is everything for us.
Yes, nicely said. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you very much, Mother Golokananda Priya. So we'll end here. We're at 9:03. We set the scene now for pure devotional service. And we're now going to hear Ramananda Roy and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu speak about the different stages of pure devotional service, taking us up to the highest perfection. I'll end with this, just rereading the sentence from the purport. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu actually accepted this verse as the basic principle of perfection. One has to practice this principle in order to make further progress. So there's further progress that different grades of pure devotional service that one can perform. But there's a foundational principle that we can't jump over, coming to the point of this this platform of pure devotional service being the goal of life, and not mixed with our material desires, not mixed with our mental speculations, becoming free from these impurities. And from this platform, we can further progress. Thank you all very much for tuning in today. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Panchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha, Patitanam
Pattanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavibhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Namo
Namo
Namaha.
Namaha. Srila
Hare
Prabhupada
Krishna.
Jai.
Thank you very much for